Welcome. My name is Grandma Storm. I write stories for young adults. Today I'm reading chapters 66 through 70 in my book, The Book of Faith. "66. Faith woke. She stretched out her hand to stroke soft fur. Her head was on a warm pillow. She was a bit cold. She pulled her knees to her chest, covering her legs with her cloak. She was hungry again. She retrieved some bread from a pocket and shared it with Kerr. The iron bars of an arena cell tempered the joy of their reunion. But they were together. For the moment, that was all that mattered, and that they had something to eat. There were other dogs, too. If they came too close, Kerr's throat rumbled a warning. There would be a whimper and sounds of retreating claws scraping on the stone floor. Marching boots, clanging doors, and muffled cries reverberated in the passageway. Kerr's head turned toward the approaching sound. The boots stopped. A bolt slid, and the door was thrown open. Faith was confused to see the beautiful dear queen thrown into the cell with her. The door slammed shut. The dear queen flung herself against the iron door, beat the bars, and cried. Kerr sniffed the air, inspecting the newcomer. The dogs from the back of the cell inched forward. Kerr clicked his teeth, and they retreated. Faith asked, "Dear Queen, why are you here?" "Who is that?" Tirzah demanded as she spun to face the voice in the darkness. "Faith," said the girl. "Don't you remember me?" "Faith?" Tirzah repeated as she dropped to her knees by the child. "Skiva put me in your lap. The little girl wrapped in gray. Why are you here?" "I showed the grandmother what she looked like." "The grandmother? What are you talking about?" The two shared their stories, sorting out the confusion bit by bit. Soon Faith understood that the grandmother was the dear queen, and that Tirzah was not the dear queen, but simply Tirzah. "I must get out of here," moaned Tirzah. "Ashiel and I are planning to escape to the mountains tonight." "What mountains?" "I think it is called the Range of the Nephilim." "I can take you there." "What?" "I have been there. I can find it again. I went over the mountain with Pa, and then under it with Skiva." "Who is Ashiel?" "Ashiel is a boy from my village. While I was the Mir, he was with the scholars. He learned of the Nephilim by reading books at the temple. Oh, whatever am I talking about? Tonight is the eve of congregation. Here I sit in the cages of the dead." "What?" "The biggest event of the season of congregation is the Battle of Blood. The dogs in these cages will die. I saw this battle every year as I sat on the throne as the Mir. The climax is when the criminals are thrown into the arena and shredded by the teeth of animals. We are the criminals. We will die tonight." Doors clanged. Boots marched toward them. 67. "Just as I predicted," mused the toothless dancer as she twirled her fire stick in the late night ceremonies. "Tonight a new Mir sits on the throne. Not as young. She looks woozy. Must have drunk some of that blue hooch." The orchestra swung into "The Dear Queen is Eternally Triumphant." It was the cue for the mock battle. The dancer jumped to miss the sword of the man next to her. It was all choreographed. The swords were dull. If you got hit, well, she was not going to get hit. The dancer wielding the sword next to her did not want to get clobbered by her flaming torch. So they missed each other on purpose. "Wonder if I will see that Mir again," I just got a copy of the latest painting. Probably not. Well, at least I can burn it. Certainly can't be caught with the wrong dear queen. Dangerous. Foolish. Cook something with it. That is what I'll do. Light it and toast a little cheese over the flame. Cooking with the dear queen. Is that funny? 5, 6, 7, 8, she counted as she twirled on her toes. 300 tumblers in scarlet and black clenched long, flashing knives in their teeth. The music was heavy with drums. Looks dangerous, critiqued the dancer. Isn't. One of her neighbors had this roll. He showed her how they altered the knives with rags, making homemade mouth guards. Whether one had teeth or not, the rag kept the knife from slipping. The scary part was coming. The music changed. That was their cue. She ran with hundreds of dancers waving swords, long knives, and torches to the middle of the arena. Then came the cavalry. Horses have their own brains. All the dancers practice their parts and know this is for show. Horses do not understand this is a mock battle. Brown leathers may be on their backs. The bits in the horse's mouth may be cruel, but sometimes the drums and the fire drive them mad. One year she saw her friend Sadie trampled. Bloody and broken, she had taken days to die. One needed to be quick here, swirling, twirling, with the cavalry galloping around them. The music was building. When the fireworks started, it was time to head to the tunnel. While eyes were drawn to the sky, the dancers were to exit. Then the real killing would begin. Almost, thought the dancer, almost got hit. I'm going to talk to that man. He needs to be more careful. Can't he count? It's supposed to be on the second count of 8 that he yells and swings the sword. Ridiculous, some people. At least the fireworks were right on cue. The sky split into bombs and blaze. She ran for the iron gate. Made it. Now for a costume change. Wish I could find something to eat. I am starved. As she doused her torch in a barrel of water, she turned to see the condemned. She hoped she wouldn't know anyone this time. There were dozens over the decades. They said things others were thinking. Good not to say. Better not to know. Best not to think. Surprised, she said, "Just 3?" Other dancers heard her comment and turned to look at the iron grate between them and the prisoners. Best not to see, she thought. But she could not look away. A youth in the garb of the scholars stood with a slender blonde. The dancer recognized the former mirror. She was tattered and dirty. No diamonds or soft furs tonight. The blonde held the hand of a little girl. Wasn't that the little girl of the night before? Ah, how the mighty have fallen, mused the dancer. She knew the next thing to happen would be the release of the dogs. She was wrong. The next thing to happen was the brown leathers throwing a skinny man dressed in black into the arena. Not willing to go to his death quietly like any other good subject of the dear queen, he began screaming, "Dearest queen, your Skiva loves and adores you. Do not throw him to the dogs. Allow him to serve you. Allow him to be your spider." Moron, observed the dancer to herself, making himself ridiculous for nothing. Skiva was on his knees in the middle of the dear queen's royal arena. He made his supplications to the mirror seated on the royal throne. But his eyes were pleading higher. Your Skiva begs for his life. Not for his sake. I am nothing. It is for you, and through you, that I live and have my being. I know things you need to know. I have things you need to have. I can serve in ways you are not aware. The mirror in the royal throne was nodding off. The dear queen in the balcony smiled a yellow-fanged grin and nodded. It was the signal for the release of the dogs. Right again, all that noise for nothing, muttered the dancer. She turned away. It was time to change for the closing ceremony. She hoped she wouldn't get blood on her shoes later. It made for slippery footing. 68. Never had he disobeyed an order from a superior. Yet this was intolerable. Wait, insisted Philip. We are all commanded to wait. But certainly that does not apply to me, argued Theophilus in the sign language peculiar to the giants. I am not of your order, but have imposed myself on your hospitality for far too long. Now that I know my mind again, I must be off this mountain and find her. No, this order is just as hard for us to obey as it is for you. Do you think we willingly stayed when we knew some tragedy had taken the little one? Just like you, Nicanor was desperate to hunt down her kidnappers. We have orders to wait, to watch, and to prepare. You are ordered to stay and serve the purposes of this fortress. It was a strange torture to eat 3 meals a day and sleep in a warm bed at night. He threw himself into any work they gave him. It was the only way he kept his sanity. Preparations were being made for war, and Theophilus could not wait to strike the first blow. 69. The lights blazed in the dear Queen's royal arena. Obese with drums, the orchestra struck the notes of the death song. Starved mongrels surrounded the condemned, teeth bared, ears flat, heads low. With his back to the iron grate, Ashiel kicked any that dared come too close to Tirzah. Cur swayed with bared teeth between Faith and the ravenous dogs. Tirzah wished she had the sculptor's sword. Sceva hopped a quick 2-step to stay in the center of it all. He was determined to be the last to die. A bony mutt lunged in and drew first blood on Kerr's flank. With a brutal grab, Kerr broke the dog's neck. That is when someone cut the power. The arena went black. The drums of the death song faltered. Blood-red fireworks shot into the sky and crashed into the mongrel horde, scattering the beasts. It was all wrong. This set of fireworks was meant for the end of the celebration of death. Dr. Luce rose from his place behind the dear Queen and ordered 2 brown leathers to follow him. As fireworks crashed, the iron grate at Ashiel's back slid open. A strong hand pulled him in. Tirzah saw Ashiel disappear into the tunnel. She grabbed Faith and ran into the black. Kerr followed. A man closed the grate, sealing fire and dogs in the arena. Before taking another step, he threw a lever that released hyenas into the madness. This way! With a shock, Ashiel recognized the 3rd scholar. This was not the feeble, faltering gentleman Ashiel knew, but an able, upright man. Careful, there are steps here, cautioned the 3rd scholar as they hurried through the bowels of the arena. You have a chance if you run. The confusion will slow the brown leathers. No keeper at the bridge tonight. Cross it, follow the eastern road over the ridge. Do not stop at any village within 10 miles. Travel at night, rest during the day. The third scholar opened a door onto a street. Ashiel saw they were near the eastern gate. Pulling Ashiel to him, the man whispered, "Established is the world, its steadfast place to hold. The king from everlasting art, his throne is fixed of old." "The song of stranger!" exclaimed Ashiel. "Yes," replied the third scholar, "things are not always as they appear." The man bent to Faith, cupping her face in his hands, and said, "My child, I have longed to see you. All my hopes are carried with you. Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. The king is with you wherever you go. I will see you again on a better day." Before their eyes, the third scholar melted into the hunched old man Ashiel had always known. "For the sake of the kingdom, run!" Ashiel snatched up Faith and ran. Tirzah followed. Ker was at her heels. A spidery shadow skirted after them. Sceva shivered in his thin black shirt. Mud spattered his new plush trousers. He had been fussing over the girl for so long he did not know what to do but follow her. Besides, Tobit was a little too hot for him right now. Maybe there was profit in her yet. It did not matter. He was a spider, and she was his prey. For days, Sceva raced after the girl and her friends. His bony limbs became spindly and angular. His black hair flopped over his black eyes. He followed them, eating little. Once he snared a rabbit and sucked its raw flesh. He was consumed by thoughts of webby traps, juicy little girls, and her tasty friends. Then he realized where they were going. At the last village, he left his constant spying and scurried ahead. 70. Villagers remembered her. How could they forget this sweet spark of young life? Those that wept when Faith was dragged away by Sceva now cried with joy when she rapped on their door at dawn. "Please hide us," begged Faith. Even Ker was welcomed. It could not be any other way because the great hound would not leave Faith's side. They were given something to eat, a hot drink, and a place to sleep. There was some consternation among the old folk when they saw Tirzah. Was this not the dear queen? Hasty explanations were made, heads nodding as understanding enlightened old brains. When they awoke, the travelers waited until dark, thanked their hosts, and ran. Tirzah and Ashiel were amazed by Faith. She knew the way. She knew the people. She behaved as a seasoned campaigner, editing what they carried and briefing them on the road ahead. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge. Best of all, she knew the Nephilim mountains and the giants. When they stopped to rest, Tirzah and Ashiel would pepper her with questions until Faith cut them off. Later, "Let's go," said Faith. "Pick me up, Ashiel." Ashiel would swing the girl onto his back and run. No one followed, or so they thought. Before dawn one day, Faith told Tirzah and Ashiel, "Beyond this village is empty road. I still have sweets the ladies in waiting stuffed in my pockets, but we must ask the people for anything they can spare. At my home by the river, We can get more food before we find the track to the mountains. And then we will be free, breathed Tirza as the light of hope shone in her eyes. As the sun rose, Faith knocked on the door of the headman's cottage. She remembered this place. It was the home of the gray-eyed man. Soon their host was stirring the fire and pulling a small chair up to the blaze. He drew a low table to the chair. He took a red shawl off a hook and draped it as a cloth to set a proper table for his honored guest. He handed around bowls of hot soup. Ashley and Tirza were given stools on the other side of the hearth. Kerr curled on the floor next to Faith. Stooping, the gray-eyed man asked, "Now tell me, little one, what has happened since last you were here?" Faith felt she was in the presence of an old friend. As he handed round bread and cheese, Faith told him of her travels and her troubles. She told him of their plan to escape to the mountains. He nodded at each point in her story and looked a little less gray when she talked of giants. "Blessed be the true king," whispered the man. "Each dawn sees his day draw nearer." His voice grew stronger. "I know the rule of the dear queen will end. Perhaps I have lived this long to be of service to the king." He grew quiet, looked into the fire, and said, "Children, stay to the main trail. There is a fork that leads to the camps. Do not take it. Stay to the right." "What are these camps?" wondered Tirza. "Any that enter," whispered the gray-eyed man, "never come out. That is all you need to know." Thank you for listening. To hear more of the story, please come back soon, or you may purchase your own copy on Amazon. Just follow the link below. Until next time.